Hey everybody, it's Leash.
Is it in your group?
No, it's on my profile, on my main profile. Sorry about the quality, folks. We'll get bigger speakers, but we don't want to scare the neighbors. Right. Thanks for joining. We've got a few people in. I'll just keep that in the background. It's not very loud, everybody, so hopefully that's all right. How you all doing? Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time out on this wonderful, breezy Saturday. I'm in Hertfordshire. Where are you, Kerry?
I am in Woodbridge in Suffolk.
Woodbridge. What's that near? Just in case we're not sure where Woodbridge is. Where's Woodbridge?
Not far from Ipswich, not far from Colchester, and not far from Lowestoft. It's on the coast.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, I've got to come and visit. Sea air is meant to be good for the skin. I don't know if that's true or not. So, but you look ravishing, by the way. So obviously doing something good for you. Definitely. Yeah. So we've been having a little bit of a chat as we do, and every now and then we like to jump on and share our experiences. And today in particular, I have been watching a few lives and catching up. And what I've noticed is that there's a lot of people that are struggling with communication, and we are not always aware of the impacts we're leaving on others. All right. So we've got big personalities. Some of us have got like really passionate things that we want to be able to achieve in our lives, but we're not always conscious or mindful, is the word I like to use, of how we are impacting others, whether it be good or positive. So we sometimes have to put ourselves in the position of maybe where the other person is before we jump in and steam in there. So that's what we're going to have a little bit of a discussion tonight, because I feel that I'm not always mindful of my body language or the way I speak or my tone. And maybe the word that's used to describe me a lot is angry, which I don't actually like. I'll be honest with you. I don't like that word at all. It's my trigger word. It gets me going. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit more. And I think dialogue is important, so we all have an understanding and a balance as to how we communicate better and build bridges.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, the communication is the key, isn't it? Love languages, I always use that terminology now, because I said earlier that when people complain about somebody or talk about somebody in Pacific, I go right past the name and I deal with the emotion of what it is that that person may be experiencing in how they relate to somebody else. Fear. Everything that we do and coming across in talking to each other is coming from a place from the past in the communication that we do in the here and now. And so certain triggers are already there. So certain words will anger certain people simply before it would just trigger off a fear factor for them. So certain words, yeah, it doesn't mean, nobody means to have they don't know your triggers. So nobody knows how you're going to react until it happens. And then there goes the barrier as such. Oh, I better not do that or say that again, because I really didn't mean to offend them. But I better not do it again. So you learn another way to go around things. And also you could possibly not want to approach that person again. Therefore, not giving them an opportunity to really find out what happened or what triggered them or what it was they didn't like about the sentence of it during that conversation.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't want to deliberate or sort of, sit on the fence in regards to where it is that I am. Like I said, I've taken ownership of the times that I know that I've spoken, maybe overly aggressively, maybe a little bit abrupt. Curt is probably the word that I like to use. And I'm not saying that I blame it on anything, but I think sometimes my thought process is a little bit quicker maybe than the person I'm speaking to. Not that I think I'm more intelligent than anybody else. It's just that I've got to an answer, whether it be the right one or the wrong one, a little bit quicker. So I've had to become an active listener, because rather than me thinking about the end goal, it's about the smoothness and the transition as to how we both got to a place where we're both comfortable with. And that's where I need to maybe, personally slow down in regards to not slow my thought processes down, but slow down in regards to trying to put my idea or my opinion onto that other person quite so quickly, allowing them to finish a sentence, for example, and maybe elaborate on an area where I'm not quite sure, or clear about what it is they've said before I can give a comprehensive answer back to them.
I think we're on guard. I think those that have been injured time and over again are on defense. That's the word. They're on defense.
How do we, personally, I mean, I've been, hurt emotionally, physically, mentally, all that sort of stuff, yeah. And I believe that I'm bouncing back, hence why I created the group, in all forms of recovery. And, daily work on myself and daily investment in myself, I'm finding that I'm less quick to judge or less quick to assume, and still have an ability to give people the benefit of the doubt. Not to my detriment, in that respect, but definitely in a sense that I don't want to write them off, at the first wrong juncture, and allow myself and them to kind of reconvene, take a breath and actually catch what it is that we're saying, and then think about how we're also feeling. Because I have spoken to people from a place of hurt and then push that out. I've also spoken to people when I'm feeling, like that, and push that out. So as long as I'm, as my mum says, accountable and responsible for my words and my actions, then I'm trying to put out what I want to get back. So if I try to speak to somebody, in a polite manner, or, inconsiderate of their feelings and my feelings, it may seem sometimes I'm being a bit soft, but to me, it just seems as if I'm being mindful.
I think just touching on a few things, I'm really intently listening to your conversation, and I'm homing in on not in particular you. When I'm talking to you, I'm thinking about everybody else and what they may be going through or sitting through in the comfort of their own home. And one of the things that I picked up upon during that conversation is that that's a little bit of a downfall sometimes, that giving them a chance over and over again, because you are mindful of what they may be going through. You are sympathetic. And this is the dangerous part of manipulation, because how many times do you continue to, I want to understand them, make excuses for people's behavior? So I feel that when somebody is abrupt or something like that, I would like to think that we could talk something through as to what was your trigger. But those that are not in a position to act in a way where it's on a professional scale, does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're not gonna think what was their trigger. They're gonna be like, gosh, they're rude. You know what I mean? So they're not gonna look at the word trigger. And yet we will look at the word trigger, because we've been taught now. Because when I first started hearing that word trigger was only about a year ago. So I've suffered with mental ill health for 40 something years. And however, I'm only now hearing the word trigger. So what do we mean by trigger? Things that relate to past bad experiences, which can create anxiety, flashbacks, fear, panic, shame, disaster, everything that can throw you off the scale because of somebody's communication needs. Does that make sense? Because the miscommunication or the lack of understanding. But that takes patience to master somebody. And sometimes we see the value in someone so much, but they don't see the value in themselves. And we keep fighting for that value. So we make excuses and what's going to be acceptable for them to change. It's almost like you never give them a time frame to change. You continue it. Next minute, you're in it for 5, 10, 15, months, years, and you're miserable because you've lost your self-esteem because they've manipulated you into a situation where you will accept and make excuses constantly for someone's behavior.
All right, so
yeah,
let me flip this on the head, because the word manipulator was used to describe me, and it wasn't a trigger word for me in regards to being angry about it when someone said it. I was actually quite hurt when they said that to me. I still don't actually. I don't consider myself to be a manipulator. They wanted to have a go at me because they felt a certain way about my attitude or my body language, or maybe my tone. Actually, I don't consider myself to be a manipulator. Yeah.
These things happen.
That's it, innit? Sorry, technical glitch. And I didn't consider myself to be a manipulator. And when they use that word to describe me, I was just like, in what sense? What do you mean? So they've had a go at me. They've told me all the wrongs about me, and then kind of said that maybe I use my past experiences for people to go easy on me or not say exactly how it is they feel in case I have a breakdown or cry, for example, or I might say I've got
around you.
Yeah, and kind of, and not really get to the crux of it in case I do something to myself, one of those sorts of things. So when they kind of when I've thought about it, and that's how they viewed me, it made me realize that I'd only really given them maybe the negative side of my life and my past experiences. So then they were kind of just able to not use them against me, but keep reminding me of those situations which kept me in a certain space, quite dark, quite negative, quite reserved, not wanting to say anything, because at this point I felt like I was speaking out of turn. So when they used that word to describe me, I actually was a bit like, do you not think that you're now manipulating the situation by constantly bringing certain things up to remind me of how you can control, so it's a very, to me, it's an evoking word. It's a dangerous word to use, because in one way or another, I wouldn't like to use the word manipulate in regards to how we interact. If you want someone to help you do something, or if you want someone to do something for you, that's a form of manipulation. But is there positive manipulation and negative manipulation?
Absolutely. Because well, absolutely. Let's go for as if we were dating someone. We would put on our parts and we would become into character. I would need you to believe in me. So generally when you meet someone on first impression, you actually do see a real glimpse of the real person. Okay, so we put on our parts because we want to be accepted, we want to be liked, and and we're listening intently to the people that we're meeting, but they will say certain words which will relate to a past tense experience. That's where you start to make decisions of who is the character that is in front of you, what do they want from you, what is their game. What you start to really analyze that person you're communicating with. Are they understanding? And even when you get off the phone to them, sometimes you're like, I wonder how they thought about me. How do they take that conversation? You justify whether or not, especially those that are really sensitive, whether or not you left them with a good sense of feeling, or whether or not you left them with a why should they come back? So it's the way when somebody enters into your life, how you're perceived and the way they exit out of your life. Do you know what I mean? So let's take for an ex, for example, the way he enters into your life is nice and graceful, but the way he leaves is bitter. The way she leaves is bitter. So you've got that scar tissue going on, you know? So then when you meet the next person and you interact, whether it's a boyfriend, friend, or whatever the situation, you're gonna judge from past experiences, because if you don't judge from past experiences, by the way, then you're going to fall down the same pothole. So it's good to have your guard up, yes, but it's also good to give somebody a chance. And if you're not quite clear on what they've said, and it has reached a trigger point, what you should do is not do the blame game. What you should say is, gosh, that really reminded me of a situation back then. I know it's not you, and I know you didn't mean to say that, and you don't understand that that was a trigger for me, but it really did remind me of something in my past. And it's not a reflection on you. Trust me, it's not. But that past was something that I felt really uncomfortable with. But if I'm feeling uncomfortable now in this situation, and it's reminding me of that, who's right and who's wrong in that situation? Because this is where the conflict comes from, where somebody wants to educate you and say, I'm not that person, yet but the action feels exactly the similar as what something happened in the previous past life. So if it was damaging in the previous past life, it cannot be right for this time if it's hurtful. So it is about the hurt, the content. It's also the words and the control of the words.
So does that, like, for me, like, I've experienced that, yeah? I've, been in dodgy relationships, moved on, or thought I'd moved on, mentally, physically, emotionally, all that sort of thing. And then I've met someone and they've said something that's similar, or they've moved in a similar fashion, not violently or anything, just a similar reaction. I've been reminded of memories that are funny, for example, from past relationships and my current relationship, where they've said something, and I'm just like, so at that point, I've realized that I didn't bring up the happy moment that I'd had with the past relationship and included it in this relationship, because I don't want to do the comparison thing. Yeah. But if I can relate a negative experience now, and it reminds me of a negative experience from back then, I used to feel comfortable going, oh, you remind me of so-and-so. And it's backfired on me a couple of times, where there's a few guys that have said to me, but I'm not that person. That may be a similar environment with vice versa. So at that point, that's where I'm allowed to, not allowed, it's a silly word, if that makes sense, but where I should not go back over that past experience, but actually replace it with the positive experience that potentially is going to be happening now, because it's a different person. So I can remember the negative, but I don't want to bring it into and speak it into life, into where it is that I am now. So is that I'm learning to heal and not compartmentalize it, but it doesn't really need to be brought into where it is that I am now, because it could put a dampener on where it is. It could be negative. It could change what could potentially turn into a positive experience.
Well, I will say that from my experience and where I have grown into talking into a relationship now, breathing life into a relationship now, rather than destroying the relationships on my past experiences, what I've got accustomed to saying is, that reminds me of a place and time and location and smell and destination. That's something that felt really uncomfortable for me. Now, what I expect from that person is to indulge a little bit more and say, well, because remember, when you meet people, you actually do pour a lot of your past into them, so they're already aware of your past. Depends if you're in a relationship, right? They're already aware of some of it, but not the extent of it.
I think I think maybe just because my mum just sits in the back of my head with this particular element, and she just said something quite poignant, a few years ago, about sharing that past stuff where you are now. People want to get to know you like, you know, and it's not they just want to know just the positive stuff, if you see what I'm saying. But I have really learned to kind of not really talk about my past, like my exes, in that way. Like now, in it, like that's not a conversation that I think is refreshing. That's positive. That's taking me where it is that I want to go with this potential person that I'm with now, if that makes sense. So if they kind of dig a little bit too much, I do say to them, I prefer to not, rather than say, no, it takes me to a dark place or it makes me feel this way. I would just, I have learned to say that that's not really where we're going, is it? Do you see what I'm saying? Otherwise, I'd still be with that person. That, you know, that
exactly.
want to know so intently about. So why don't we get to know each other on a different, you know, about us? Yeah, we've all had good and bad relationships, but I don't want to sit here and talk about your ex-girlfriends, for example, your ex-partners in the same fashion. I wouldn't want you to sit and talk about mine. So it's not like I brush over it or it's not important. It's just I don't feel it's beneficial to where it is that I'm taking my life and moving forward in that way, by kind of constantly reminded myself of situations. I want to have new experiences and new
but you wouldn't be constantly reminding yourself of those situations because nothing is planned. But when a situation arises and it resembles something that you've been through previously, then it needs to be addressed because you walked away from this situation. Put it this way, when you've been somewhere previously, that's not where you want to go again. So if that only at the time arises, it has to be addressed. And it's not, I don't want to talk about your ex. Of course we don't want to talk about the ex. We want to talk about that situation that brought you to a place where you were scared. You know what I mean? So if it's happening, if it happens on the encounter, if you're talking about relationships, because one we talk about friendships, we could talk about relationships. But if you talk about relationships and you encounter a problem because it's something that you're not accustomed to, like let's take an example that your partner's come home from work and he's come home in a bad mood. Now you're not accustomed to him coming in a bad mood. He's done something completely different where, you know, and it's affected you. And you think, oh, wow, I just cooked you dinner and you've just turned it away. But yet he's coming in a bad mood, done something completely different. And it's affected you to the point where you think, God, my last boyfriend used to turn around and do that, dismiss my effort on the table, and nothing meant is in it. Do you know what I mean? However, you still have to address why the change of behavior that has made you feel the way it felt. And you have to have a discussion both ways to say, do you think we could just change it? Where do you think we could do this? Because that's a little bit uncomfortable for me. That's how you can sort of change
I think
a bad situation to a good situation.
I agree there. However, if, you know, for example, if someone, that same scenario, came home and wasn't having, you know, didn't want the meal and just pushed it away, I think my concern would be what's, you know, what's wrong with that person, what's happened in that person's life, rather than me kind of taking myself to a negative space. If you see what I'm saying, it would be concern more so than, oh, I remember when that happened before, it led to this. Do you know what I mean? And sort of thing. So I'm trying not to do the comparison, just because it's not always the same outcome. And like I said, that's why I'm kind of just a bit more mindful.
Yeah.
Of how quick I get to that same destination. Do you see what I'm saying? That same feeling.
But if we're talking about people that are in a state of, I can never help this, can I always go to the mental health side of it? If you're talking about people that are struggling in relationships out there, then they might come across a situation that is different, but internally they may fear of what's wrong, what did I do, whatever. That instant reaction will then change someone's emotion. And, you know, I think in order to communicate effectively with anyone, you've got to have a conversation, good or bad, because if you're in a relationship, there's no point in quitting on the relationship unless it's physically and mentally abusive. It means that you need to be both on the same path and work through things where you can communicate effectively without screaming, without shouting at each other, without taking ownership or controlling the situation. You need to understand that you only came together as a gift, really, and gifts can be taken away. Nobody owns anybody in a relationship or in a friendship. It's supposed to be an added bonus to have someone in your life, and choose wisely who you have in your life. Your circle and friends are going to dictate your life. They're going to make or they're going to break you. So you've got to find the strength to find your own direction in life and avoid these potholes that you've been. So if something don't feel right, because you've been here time and time and time again, making the same excuses for somebody's behavior time and time again, sometimes you have to go the other, plan a route of escape, because you can't fix people. The only way they're going to fix themselves is going to learn, and they're going to learn the hard way, because the people will drop away from them like flies, or they become to have a bad reputation. So it is about the reputation of somebody completely.
I hear where you're coming from. And I think the reason why, I've obviously had the little banner across the bottom in regards to the impact you leave on others is, if we're not, like you said, sort of mentally strengthened or strong, we don't really know what the other person is capable of doing to themselves because of something we've said and the impact we have left on them. And, again, words can hurt, let alone everything else, you know what I mean, in that respect. And I think that's something that has been, highlighted for me today more so than anything, is that we can have passion and we can be assertive and we can speak really, really articulately and get our message across. And then there are times that we can maybe raise our voice and sound like we're speaking more from the gut with a little bit more passion, and it can come across as anger and that sort of thing. But again, like I said, because we don't know how that's being left on the other person, that can then lead to, we don't know what's happened after we put that phone down, and we can't see that person anymore. So, have they gone away crying? Have they gone away and punched a wall? Have they gone away, with feeling lesser of a person, not worthless, but unappreciated? And the word, rather than use the word manipulation, which is what we've used a lot, is the intimidation. So I don't fear things anymore. There are times that I have felt intimidated by the way someone has spoken to me. And rather than fight fire with fire, as they say, I have found it easier to maybe keep quiet rather than express my opinion. So yes, they have triggered a lot of stuff inside of me, but maybe because I'm a little bit further along on my mental strength journey, I can see that that person is struggling to communicate. And that may be something that they need to look at within themselves, like you said, because people will move away from them. They're not going to be a magnet if they're shouting at everybody. People will steer clear of them if they have that type of reputation. So I like I said, not make excuses for them. I've just realized that they're not in a place where I want to deal with them on that mental capacity. So it's safer for me to stay away from that individual.
And that's and you touch upon that, and this is a common factor with people that are not well or struggle with I'm going to use the word struggle with their emotions. It's a very common factor that people leave them too, and they just keep ending up feeling alone and isolated. Can't seem to get anything right. That's a common classic one, isn't it? Can't get nothing right, can I? And they lose out. But I want people to understand that a lot of people are using mental health as an excuse for their behavior, and it's justified to say, yeah, but I've got mental health. I'm going to say you've got behavior that needs to be addressed in order to give people opportunity. Because of your past, you need to give other people an opportunity, because not everybody is your past, to communicate effectively with you by explaining your needs. It's almost like writing out a contract or a CV for yourself. This is me, this is my experience, and this is, you know, this is what I like to do. Okay, so you're not really wanting to write down, this is me, these are my triggers, because that's, you want people to understand you and understand the real you. You're never going to understand the real you if you have to keep explaining your triggers. So what you're doing is putting those warnings out, right? Don't piss me off, because if you piss me off, I'm going to go and do something stupid to myself. You know, sorry, I had to put that out there like that. You know what I mean? You've got people that do that, and it's leaving so much fear for somebody behind, like, oh my God, I better not even leave them. I better not end the relationship, because if I end the relationship, they're going to go and do something stupid to themselves. So now they feel they're now like into the point where they're also struggling with, I would say struggling, those that can't find it in, because again, the sympathetic part, the excuses come in, even from the person that doesn't suffer in mental health. Somewhere along the line, their mentality is being crumbled because they keep making excuses for that kind of behavior also. So therefore, they now start to become affected by that behavior also. And they make excuses, and it's friend, foe, whatever. Oh yeah, it's literally, it should be a two-way street in relationships or friendships. It's not where you can take the power over somebody. It should be, if you want someone to be happy, then we be mindful of that they need to grow, because if you was never in a relationship with anybody or friendship, they'd still be growing anyway. So you don't want to come in and suffocate them and start treating them like a child. That's what you don't want. People want to be treated like an adult. They want to be treated like a queen. Now, relationships, friendship goes both ways. Respect is respect. Don't waste people's time. Don't manipulate, and don't think people have to do things for you. You should ask. And if it's too much, you can't not moan at these people for not doing something they don't want to do, because then it becomes manipulation and blackmail, and you're forcing someone into doing something they don't want to do just by your words of behavior. So you have to be fair. Things may hurt when you can't get your own way, yeah, but communication is the key, because otherwise you end up arguing all the time, and nobody has the right to domineer somebody's space.
So for me, in that respect, like listening to that, how do you then, like, in essence, what you've described is like a bit of a narcissist, or someone who's quite
and everybody has it in them.
Yeah, of course we do at the end of the day. You know, again, it can be used to manipulate and
good and bad,
you know,
entice.
Yeah, and that sort of thing, if that's the case. So is again, like I said, it's the impact, like I said, that we're the impression and the impact that we're leaving on others. Some people kind of have a, I don't care what people think of me kind of.
They do, really. They really do.
And at that point, that means if they don't care what people think of them, the way that I see it is that they're projecting. They don't care for others, or they don't care what other people think or the way other people feel. And I'm not saying that we should take on everybody's feelings and emotions and have to balance all of that. And every minute, oh, don't step on eggshells because you might offend so and so, and don't say that. Do you sort of saying? I don't work in that manner. I do, like, you know, put out there my honest opinions, but I do think it can be done diplomatically. I do think it can be done without swearing. I think it can be done without belittling and insulting somebody. Because just for me, being on this particular, like, certain platforms, for example, you pose a question which is open-ended, and just, you're not advising and not telling anybody what to do. It's a question, therefore you're seeking answers. And then within the thread you kind of get, well, you obviously haven't read a book, and you're just a loser, and you're stupid, and all these kind of derogatory things that are just like, well, that's not really connected to what it is that I was asking. But if that's your train of thought and where you're thinking, do I have to now worry or be overly concerned that you're just like a mosquito? It's the only way that I can describe some people that I interact with. Yeah, they are. They're mosquitoes. You hear them, and every now and then you get that, and you don't really see it, and you don't really know it, and then you get a bump or you get a lump somewhere, and you think, God, that thing got me. I didn't even notice. And then when you do finally catch it and you swat it, because that's, you know, I mean, what happens, then, you know, like, problem solved, isn't it? Sort of thing. But why is it, I personally just keep questioning, why is it I have to feel like I get to that level with certain people where I want to swat them rather than just, like, I don't want to put it out, I don't want to swear, anti-BS spray to a certain extent. Like, I want to create anti-BS spray. Or even like the odor that comes off their breath, it should come out a certain color when they're talking BS, because like you said, we don't have time for it anymore. I really haven't got time for allowing someone to kind of just stomp all over it is my feelings, or stomp all over my idea and think that, you know, I don't have anything to bring to the table, I'm not contributing as much, or I'm not, you know, upholding my worth or my part of the bargain, because those things were outlined at the beginning. Those were the agreements were, because like I said, in the beginning of friendships, you put your boundaries up, you draw your lines in the sand and say, I'm prepared to do this, and that person's prepared to do that, and you climb the ladder of friendship, is the way that I see it, is that, you know, each person takes a step. You can both be on the same run of the same ladder at the same time. So it's just one of those. Like I said, I've kind of got a bit better at life at swatting the mosquitoes, and I'm not afraid to do so. And therefore, the impact that I'm leaving on that person is devastating, because I've swatted them. There is no comeback from that. So that's why I try to a little bit give people that benefit of the doubt and allow them a bit of rope. And then within our culture, what we say, give them enough rope, they would eventually hang themselves, which sounds cruel. I understand that. But there are times you have to let other people go away and realize their mistakes away from you. It doesn't mean to say that the outcome is going to be the same. It just means let them go over there and make that mistake on their own.
I know what you mean about making a mistake on your own. I didn't like the terminology. I know it is. I know it's a term. I know it's an old terminology. Well,
you can say, well, all right, let's make it a more positive one. Give them as many miles as they want so they can drive away on that road. How about that? That's a bit more positive, isn't it, in that respect? You know,
and on the other side of it, they say people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Yeah.
And then the other one is he without sin first cast the first stone, right? But, I mean, who hasn't got sin nowadays? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not going to go down. You know what it is?
I don't want to go down. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about phrases.
Politics and religion. I stay away from that on there, because everybody gets all upset and that sort of thing. I'm just like, I'm in my bubble, so leave me alone.
I think it's about, respect. Let's respect the space that we share with people, the platforms that you share with people. Basically share. It's about sharing anyway. Sharing is caring, but don't take where it's all take and no give. And it's definitely about respect, isn't it? So
everyone's level I found that everyone's level of respect is actually quite different. It sounds really bizarre, because where I would think that, you know, certain things are acceptable or not acceptable, other people have different boundaries, different morals, different ethics to that extent. So I have become very much grounded in regards to my stance and where it is that I'm going. And I know that I'm one of the fortunate people in the world, is that I would say, is that I've actually on the journey of finding my purpose, and within that self-discovery and healing amongst anything. So I don't close doors on people, or say I'll close doors, but I don't always lock them and bolt them and multi-lock them and then put the chub on and that sort of thing. Some people have to have that experience, and sometimes it does take me a while to get there. But what I have realized is that this is, again, where my little hashtag comes in, people, where I now know how to bounce back a lot quicker emotionally from those experiences. So people still say stuff that bothers me. People still do stuff that I don't want to tolerate. However, I don't sit at home and cry and eat ice cream and cookies for 3 days like I perhaps would have done a little while back. I now channel that energy. Fortunately, I've learned how to channel what could be negative energy and just look at it as energy. And so what I choose to then do with it, I can either fuel that fire or I can water my lawn. So which do I prefer? Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day. So yeah, let me plant my seeds and water my lawn and let that fire stay over there and burn itself out eventually. So that's where I am. I am mindful of the impact I leave on others, because I feel that I've been dealt with in a way where others haven't given a damn, quite frankly, as to how they've left me feeling or how they've walked away from a conversation. It's like, I've got everything off my chest. Now you can deal with it. But I'm on my own standing there. There's no one to conversate with. So yes, I'm very much mindful.
It's that people want, what I find that when it comes to an argument, is that people do like the last word, and they will, even if they don't, they hang up the phone. That's still not enough sometimes. They'll go and do it on Facebook or something like that. They like the last word. And they'll do indirect status as well in relation to, I'm going to get them back. But I'm going to do an indirect status about how I feel. So they do the indirect statuses.
I've seen all of that, right? And the thing is that this is where I know where I'm mindful of the impact here. Those people that want to leave those indirects, I just block them. Literally, you just block them. Therefore, whatever it is that you're harping on about, I can't even see. Do you see what I'm saying? Because I'm not on that level.
What about the picture messages? Because those are the ones that I think, especially when they've got images where they've got their hands up and the middle finger up and stuff like that. Do you know what? There was a person that I thought they wanted to be a part of the Mom Project. I said, well, hold on a minute. You've got images with your middle finger sticking up and saying up the world or up him or something about derogatively towards somebody else. I said, how can you represent what I stand for or what we stand for as suicide prevention? It means no harmful behavior. So if you're going to do harmful behavior and put that kind of images out, then you're bringing that reputation on you, but you're bringing it to me and you're in my circle. So I had to address that behavior. And I said, look, you can do what you want, but please don't, because you cannot represent what we stand for and do quite the opposite. So whether or not that was a company, I set that boundary for me, really, because I stand for not putting that kind of behavior out there anymore, that venomous. I can be angry the world sometimes, right? And I want to say something about it. But you know what? Best I just do it in an indirect status when I turn a positive message. Don't forget your friends or something like that, or take time to talk. I will do it in those ways. But other people, they won't. They can put really bitchy comments back and just I laugh now, but deep down I know they're hurting and they didn't get the opportunity to take the time to communicate with somebody effectively, to iron out the issues where you can make a decision amicably and say, you know what, this friendship is not working anymore. Let's just not destroy any more of it.
I think personally, social media and the way we communicate on, via social media has changed who we are. I'm not saying that everybody's a keyboard warrior and everybody's out there trying to change the world and all of this sort of stuff. But I think people don't read things properly, and they read into things rather than sort of seeing reading it for what it is, and then kind of going off on their own little tangent and their little rant sometimes. And you think to yourself, well, again, this has got nothing to do with me as an individual. So I'm not going to take it personally. But yeah, I don't know why everybody feels like they can't be hurting that much, because or they're hurting so much. Everyone just seems to want to poke at everybody else and kind of bring each other down. And I'm not saying that, the world is full of positivity every day and, everywhere's full of flowers and we've got to skip through, the garden of life as such. But it's just, I don't understand why, we just feel that some people feel the need to just, like I said, talk down to each other and do the whole insulting thing, and then not know what circumstances that person is dealing with at the other end. Some people look at social media as a form of escapism. They go there for a bit of fun. They go there for a laugh. They go there for information. I think encouragement, motivation, inspiration, creativity. But I don't think any of us really genuinely jump on here going, I'm going to go out there and ruin somebody's day. But there are people
that do that.
And it's a small pocket of them, but it's how do they get and stay in that mode every day? How do you actually stay in that space every single day? It takes so much energy to do that. So trying to have an interaction with somebody who's like that, it's just pointless. Do you know what I mean? So I think But if we was to meet face to face with these same people and have these same conversations in a bar environment, it doesn't have to be alcohol inflicted or anything like that, but just in a, in a face to face environment, wherever it would be, would we really be speaking to each other and interacting with each other the way we do online? No, I don't think we would somehow. Body language, facial expression counts for a lot. And social media has taken all of that away. So if those are all the things that contribute to effective communication, you take away some of the parts, it's not working anymore, isn't it? It's not effective. We're not really communicating. We're just giving snippets.
Yeah, and people think Facebook is not your friends. Your friends are the people that you see or hear from. Other than that, it's just a virtual reality of words written on a screen, or even this, even this. I am real, but you're looking at technology.
Exactly.
So you can play it back. And if you look at where they say futuristic, you're playing it back. I was once here, you press play, I appear again. So if that applies to the memory, I was once here, and you can play it back. That means you can predict your future.
Well, I'm going to
go this way. When I get off the phone to you, when I get off here with you, I now become just a memory of a conversation that you just had. No face, no visual, no phone call, no voice. I'm now just embedded in your memory. Good or bad experience, was it? You want some more of this good experience? Or do you want to go, and this is the thing about what button do you want to press? Do you want to press play and go forward? Or you want to keep rewinding your life over and over again to the bad experiences?
Yeah, but that's what I think, and that's why, like I said, I refrain from speaking about my bad experiences in any form of new friendships and relationships. It's something for me to be able to make a judgment on internally as to, my gut feeling says that, and I can compare that to that. But now I'm very much less vocalizing those comparisons because they just haven't benefited me. They haven't built more positive relationships with those new people. They're learning experiences and things for me to remember to actually spot the things that may be similar. And if I handle them differently, the outcomes may be different. So again, taking a little bit of ownership that, not the outcomes is part of me contributing to what's going on. So therefore, yeah, I am definitely more mindful.
Right. So 10 types of emotional manipulation. We're going to run through them, right? Yeah. Because I'm mindful of the time. So just a couple of seconds and take a little bit of knowledge from this, and then Leash will blaze it out. All right.
Now let's get into it. 10 types of emotional manipulators. 1. The constant victim. This kind of individual will always find a way to end up as the victim in their relationships. 2. The one-upsmanship expert. This person uses put-downs, snide remarks, and criticisms to show that they're superior and know much more than you. 3. Powerful dependents. Powerful dependents pretend to be weak and powerless, then use their helplessness to dominate relationships. That is, they send the subtle message, "You must not let me down." 4. Triangulators. These people always try to get others on their side. They're quick to say nasty things and put you down. They separate good friends and drive wedges in between families. 5. The blasters. They blast you with their anger or suddenly blow up. That stops you from asking questions in case there's a showdown.
No, go on, pause.
6. The projector.
Yeah. The only reason why I'm saying pause, there were 5 really valuable points there, and I didn't just want to gloss over them because I just want, if necessary, for some of that to digest with, the people who are watching. And I'm sure we can visualize and we can think of a few people that may be in our circle or we've had around us that kind of tick some of those boxes. So it is literally just to sort of just take in a little bit of that information in that respect, just to kind of go, right, I'm not saying that we haven't played victim. I'm not saying, we've all got instances where we have utilized these emotions and utilized our body language and our vocalization around other people to get what it is that we want. It doesn't always have to mean it's bad, but these are the signs that we should definitely sort of be aware of. And that's what I'm saying, be mindful of your impact on others. Go for it.
The projector thinks they're perfect and that others have all the flaws. They take no ownership because they're never, ever wrong. 7. The deliberate misinterpreter. This person seems nice, but they twist and use your words. This person spreads misinformation and misinterprets you, deliberately presenting you in a false, negative way. 8. The flirt. This person uses flirting to get their way in life. They want to be admired and have an audience. However, your needs and interests are of no concern to them. 9. The iron fist. The iron fist uses intimidation to throw their weight around, use you for their ends, and get their way in life. 10. The multiple offender. This person uses several of the techniques we've described, and they'll often switch between the methods depending on what suits their purposes. So have you ever encountered these types of people before? If so, how did you deal with them?
So, right, I think at that point, we will give solutions as to how we cope with what we would consider manipulators, and we'll come back with the answers as to what we suggest you do. And we'll come back tomorrow on my Sunday 6 p.m. live.
I am Kerry Mussington, for the founder of the Mom Project, Mind Over Matter, Suicide Prevention. And we are trying to give you techniques, tips, tools, so you can spread the awareness, definitely spread the share button, and spread the love, not the negative. Stay positive, people.
Yeah, and you know me, I'm Leisha. I'm in Hatfield in Hertfordshire. I do bouncing back in so many ways, and this live was, I would say, urged because I've got a couple of friends who have been feeling the impact of others due to conversations, meetings, and what I would say networking. And just be mindful, like I've said, of the impact you're leaving on others. And if someone comes away feeling a little bit weren't quite happy with that, please consider going back to the individual you were speaking to and actually trying to smooth the situation, weighing up your worth, weighing up the value, and how you will both benefit from that interaction. And if that person is the one that's benefiting and you're not happy with it, let them know. All right. I'm not saying compromise, but we should definitely learn to communicate differently where both people are being heard. We are given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And with that being said, thank you for joining us, one and all. My name's Leash, and I have been joined by the wonderful Kerry. Be mindful of your impact on others. Night night. See you tomorrow, 6 p.m. UK time.
I like that.